Hey guys, I am just getting some of the folks into the chat. So guys, you know what we're doing now, right? We're doing a reenactment of the transcript that happened during the restitution hearing. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this. So I got it. I got it. I got it. As you know, I would. I got it. So I'm just waiting for some of my folks to get on in here and be ready for the read. Before we do this, let's go ahead and play a little bit of Mr. Kelly's tune here. All right, here we go.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Hold on now. Wait a minute, fellas. Wait a minute. I think it goes something like this. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Cause every time I turn around, there's something trying to keep me down. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Whoa, can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. When I look up, don't you know, burdens knocking at my door. So won't you come and take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Oh, come and take these burdens off of me. Off of me. Somebody come and take these burdens off of me. Off of me. Soon as I get up off the ground, my burdens knock me right back down. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Somebody take these burdens off of me, off of me. Somebody take these burdens off of me, off of me. Somebody take these burdens off of me, off of me. Well, off of me, off of me. Oh, off of me, off of me. Well, off of me, off of me. Get them off of me, off of me. Come and break the chain. Come and break the chain. Get it off of me. Get it off of me. I need somebody. I need somebody. I need somebody. I need somebody to get this burden. To get this burden. Can somebody take these burdens off of me?
All right, guys. Hey, you know who I'm playing, right? I'm playing Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly. I'm Mr. Robert Kelly. Since everybody's always saying I'm a man. But anyway. All right, guys. As you getting this exclusively in this channel here, the reading of the transcript that occurred, we're doing a reenactment of the restitution hearing that occurred on September 28th. On Wednesday at 11 o'clock a.m. at the United States District Court, Eastern District Court of New York, where Judge Ann Donnelly was the presiding judge over the hearing, the restitution hearing. Before we go any further, let me introduce to you my folks who are doing the reenactment with me. Okay, here is our judge. Hey, Judge.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Jennifer.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Miss Elbert. And of course, y'all, I'm playing Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly. All right, Miss Elbert, are you up? Are you up, Miss Elbert? All right. All right. United States against Robert Sylvester Kelly, defendant. 19 CR 00286, United States Court, Brooklyn, New York. Wednesday, September 28th, 2022, 11 a.m. This is the criminal proceeding and is heard before the Honorable Ann M. Donnelly, United States District Judge. All right, let's get started. In open court. Hi, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. It's your turn.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody can have a seat.
This is criminal cause for hearing docket number 19 CR 286, United States versus Robert Kelly. Counsel, state your appearance. Government first.
Ready?
Government first. Ms. Elbert.
Line number 9 on page 2.
Ms. Elbert, unmute your phone. Y'all, please excuse Miss Elbert. Miss Elbert? Pretty brown eyes. Get out the chat. I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, she's in the chat speaking to folks. Miss Elbert, can you please? Lord have mercy.
She might have to refresh because, I mean, we know she's here. Say brown eyes.
Unmute your phone. Okay, I'm going to boot her and then let her come back in, and then maybe she'll try it again. All right. Sorry, guys. I apologize. She's in the
She
chat.
typed, I'm coming.
She stepped away from her phone. I kicked her off. Now she's coming back. Here she is, y'all. Hold on. Let me change her name. Hold on. All right, here she goes. Miss Elbert.
Pretty.
Guys, I apologize. Good help is hard to find.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, got it. Okay, sorry. Let me go back.
Line 9.
I was reading it. That's crazy. Okay. Oh, God. Geez.
Where'd she go?
She disappeared.
Guys, we're sorry. This is what happened when you get somebody from the West Coast who's half asleep.
Oh.
It just be like that. Technical difficulty.
We apologize. Please bear with us for a moment. And take a moment to have a conversation with one another. Hello, everybody. Let me say hello to the folks in the chat. Hello, Jane Doe. Hey, Kimberly. Hello, Bree. Hey, Shannon. Hey, Perspective Me. Pretty brown eyes. Come on back. Hey, Rob. Hello, Miss Tamiria. Hey, Big Marshall's in the house. Good morning, Skin Tight 70. Hey, Shannon again. Hey, Debbie. Rabbit is in the house. Faithful One. Good morning. Good afternoon for us. Hey, Carmen. Hey, Grand Jurist. Hello, ILG. Hello, T-Girl. Hello, Next Level. Y'all, I apologize. We were trying to make this as smooth as possible, but it seems as if it's not happening right now.
It's never smooth. They used to it. It's all good.
Yeah. But I'm telling you guys, it's worth the wait. It's worth the wait. I promise you, it's worth the wait. What I've read is really some good stuff, okay? Stuff that is nowhere else being told. The exclusive transcript reading. Reenactment, that is. By the vlogger, the courtroom vlogger.
Oh, what do you guys think about? Can I bring up a different subject until?
No,
No.
we don't want to get people caught up in other things. Let's stay
Hmm.
focused. Focus, focus. Oh my Lord.
Hmm.
All right, I'm gonna bring everybody down for a moment. I apologize, guys. She was change it to her computer. She couldn't see the word, so here she come. All right, back by popular demand. Let me do the introduction again. Here is our judge and Jennifer and Miss Elbert and myself. I play Mr. Kelly. All right, guys, are we ready? Action. Roll it. We're going to start from the beginning again, guys. I apologize. Let's start from the beginning. All right. United States of America against Robert Sylvester Kelly, defendant. Case number 19CR 00286, United States Courthouse, Brooklyn, New York. All right. All rise.
Hi, everybody can have a seat.
This is criminal cause for a hearing, docket number 19CR 286, United States, USA versus Robert Kelly. Counsel, state your appearance. Government first.
Pretty brown eye.
Government first.
Unmute. Unmute again.
Shh. Okay, she's having technical difficulty. I thought she said she had it, y'all. She said she had it. Oh, Lord have mercy. Marshall, you in here twice. Is that you, the same Marshall? Okay, here she go. Miss Elbert. Government first.
She can't unmute. Every time she unmutes, it mutes back. Can you unmute her?
No. No, she has to unmute herself. Trust me, if I could unmute her, I would unmute her. All right, we're gonna have to move forward because there she go. Oh no, let me kick her off one more time, guys. One more time and see if she can reboot herself. I think she might be using her she might be on she probably needs to get off the back.
Oh, yeah. No, she wasn't there.
She might have been back there.
Mm.
She's using her Because she's using, what happened is she has an app that's on. She needs to take off all her apps and use Pretty Brown Eyes. You got to close out all your other apps that uses the talking feature. Marshall, you in here twice. There she go. She in here now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll unmute that. So
And
now you can hear me.
Yeah, and get
Yeah.
out
Okay. Let me go back.
I figured what it was, y'all.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay, let's get started.
I just woke up, so
Let's get started. Hold on.
okay, I'm ready.
All right. Okay. The government first.
Let's go ahead and start, Pretty Brown. Line 9.
Okay. Good morning, Your Honor. Lauren Elber for the United States.
I'm just going to ask you to have a microphone handy so we can hear you.
Sure.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jennifer Bonjean and Ashley Cohan on behalf of Mr. Kelly, who is present via Zoom.
All right.
Judge.
Good morning, Mr. Kelly.
Good morning.
Can you hear?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Okay. Just to clarify, I think the request that Mr. Kelly appear by Zoom was made by defense counsel because I think he suffered some injury. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor. He has. I don't want to get into too much detail, but it would have been uncomfortable. And he, I think, was waiting for some medical service there at the MCC.
That's completely fine. I just want to establish that it was a defense request and he's consenting to appear by video. Is that right?
That's right, Your Honor.
Okay. So just a little bit of background. When the defendant was sentenced, in addition to the prison sentence, I also ordered a $100,000 fine, the $900 mandatory special assessment, as well as $40,000 under the Justice for Trafficking Victims Act. But I deferred ruling on the question of restitution until I got further information from the parties. I am going to go over the submissions because there have been quite a few of them, and I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. At this point, just to recap, and I'll have the government correct me if I'm wrong, but the restitution requests are for 3 of the victims. I think I am correct that the only victim for whom restitution is sought pursuant to USC section 2429 is Jane. Is that right?
Miss Elbert. Unmute yourself, Miss Elbert.
Yes, I think that's right, Your Honor.
All right. And the other 2 victims' restitution is being sought pursuant to 18 USC 3663A. So let me just go over the submissions that I've gotten. There was an initial restitution letter from the government, and I'm not going to go into detail, but it made some requests for Jane Doe number 5, Sonia, and there was a reference to Jane Doe number 9. On June 24th, probation filed a letter in which it stated that Faith and Faith's mother returned victim impact statements and affidavits of loss. There was an objection filed by the defense on June 27th. Then on September the 9th, there was another submission by the government, this time advising the court that Kelly withdrew her claim. I don't know which Jane Doe that was, and that the government was not seeking restitution for Faith, but was continuing to seek restitution for the other victims.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Judge. Jane Doe number 9 is Lizette.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Judge. I'm sorry.
Now I forgot where I was. Let me see.
On September 21st. 22nd line. Sorry.
On September 21st, the defense filed a letter opposing the government's request. The government replied on the 23rd. On the 27th, the government clarified the calculations with respect to Stephanie and defense counsel filed a response. And at the outset, I think there was a typographical error in your submission of the 27th in terms of the years we're talking about.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You wrote 2009, but you meant 1999.
1999. That's right, Your Honor.
All right. The government is seeking, with respect to Jane Doe number 5, a total amount of $3,057 to $357,218.18, which covers herpes treatment expenses, projected therapy expenses for 3 3/4 years, and lost income.
What lost?
Lost income.
Right.
Exactly. What lost income? I couldn't even help myself. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help myself.
I'm sorry, y'all. We're gonna have to do some comments.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. What lost income?
Exactly.
Laying on her back. Ooh.
But
Restitution for Stephanie for herpes treatment expenses, and for it is 3 years of therapy expenses.
all that should have been paid by her parents.
I believe that's right, Your Honor. But let me just double check.
I believe that's correct. I think that's right. If it's not,
Yes, I think that's right, Your Honor.
you'll let me know.
Yes.
And then for Sonia, the request is for $5,200, and that's for therapy expenses for a year. First of all, have I missed anything? Is there any submission that I haven't covered?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
No, I believe that's correct.
All right. And just sort of some basic principles with respect to section 2429 that applies to Mann Act convictions and applies to Jane Doe number 5 is mandatory restitution for defendants convicted of Mann Act violations in the full amount of the victim's losses. The reimbursements must be for costs that are incurred or reasonably projected to be incurred in the future as a proximate result of offenses involving the victim. And the costs include medical service, including physical, psychiatric, or psychological care, is relevant here. Lost income and any other relevant losses that the victim incurs. There are some other ones as well, but I don't think they apply here. With respect to the restitution that's covered by 3663, section 3663 of 18 USC, the sentencing court may require restitution if there's bodily injury to a victim. And in those cases, the court can award restitution to cover the cost of necessary medical and related professional services and devices related to physical, psychiatric, and psychological care, including non-medical care and treatment that's rendered in accordance with the method of healing, recognized by the law in the place of treatment. The restitution only has to be a reasonable estimate of losses, but the court cannot base a restitution award on speculation. But the law is also clear that any uncertainties with respect to the amount in question must be resolved in the victim's favor because of the statutory focus on making the victim whole. The government's burden is to establish the loss amount under these statutes, and any dispute about the amount the court has to resolve by preponderance. So I think the best thing to do here is to start with Jane. And again, this will be based on the Mann Act violations, in particular, Racketeering Acts 8, 9, 10, and 11 under count 1 and count 2, 3, 4, and 5, which charge Mann Act violations based on sexual activity that exposed Jane to herpes, and based on sexual activity with a minor, sexual exploitation of a child, and forced labor. I also think that it's probably, because I think this discussion will come up, it's probably not a bad idea to mention that under 18 USC 3663, what the definition of a victim is. And that's a person who is directly and proximately harmed as a result of the commission of an offense for which restitution may be ordered. including in this case of an offense that involves as an element a scheme, conspiracy, or pattern of criminal activity and person directly harmed by the defendant's criminal conduct in the course of the scheme, conspiracy, or pattern. Also, Judge Amon, who wrote a very comprehensive opinion on the topic of restitution, observed that the definition of victim is broad. So let me hear from the government. I mean, I will say that the submissions are pretty thorough, and I think I understand everybody's argument, but the government's position with respect to the cost. We'll start with treating the herpes. The government calculates that amount as $281,168.18. And I think the government reached that determination by calculating how much it costs a year to take Valtrex without insurance and on annual gynecological exam, which the government calculates as $5,255.48, and multiplying that by an average life expectancy for a woman in the United States, which is 82. And so the government multiplied those amounts by 53 and a half years. And then citing the public website, the government assumes that a 30-day supply of 500-gram Valtrex tablets costs $421.29, and that an annual gynecological exam costs $200. Do I have those figures correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Miss Bogene, I understand you to be saying that Jane's herpes isn't casually linked to the Mann Act violations because there's no connection between her contradicting herpes and the encounters in California that the basis of the Mann Act violations. And so your position is she's not a victim. Is that right?
No, my position.
Turn on your microphone if you could. Thanks.
I think the question of what constitutes a victim is not the same question as whether or not the specific conduct that is the basis of the offense is approximately or directly related to the harm for which the victim is seeking restitution. So I don't quarrel with the court or judge Amon's or anyone's definition of victim. And I think for restitution purposes, Jane Doe qualifies as a victim. That doesn't obviate the need to make a proximate and direct casual link to the specific offenses for which the victim is seeking restitution, and that there has to be an actual.
The only reason I'm going to just stop you for a moment,
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand that your position is that the government would have to establish that she actually got herpes from those two encounters in California.
Yes, for the purpose of certainly under 2429, and then if they were considering it pursuant to 18 USC 3663A, it would still have to be connected to some criminal activity or pattern of criminal activity. And our position, and it's the uniqueness of the indictment and the uniqueness of the case and the uniqueness of the underlying circumstances of these particular offenses, that yes, they do have to demonstrate that the harm that Jane suffered was casually linked to some specific criminal activity that was either, again, under the Racketeering Act or a Mann Act violation. And the reason for that is otherwise, we're just saying we may as well just, have a sign up list at the door for anyone that wants to allege that they were mistreated by Mr. Kelly for, the entirety of the alleged RICO enterprise.
Well, I don't think anybody is suggesting that. Maybe I'm not making myself clear. I just want to make sure that I understand that your position is that the government has to specifically connect her actually contracting herpes to those two times in California. Is that right?
Yes, or some other criminal activity as part of the RICO enterprise at a minimum. Yes.
Well, because as I understand it, the racketeering acts charged with respect to this victim, the Mann Act offenses were engaging in sexual activity that exposed someone to herpes in violation of public health statutes.
Correct. And it wasn't, they were together for 4 years. It wasn't every time they had sex he committed a crime. So, yes, I think the specific offense that was charged, that was for which he was convicted, there has to be that casual link.
All I'm saying is the statute doesn't require that she actually contracted. It requires that he exposed her to it.
Hmm. I know, well, I know that. Well, I know that the courts, yes. I'm aware that the court's position is that I am not even quarreling with that.
I just read the statute. That's all. That's what it says.
I understood. But for restitution purposes, for there to be harm, exposure wouldn't be enough.
Well, you are disputing that. She has it.
No, I'm not disputing she has it. I'm disputing the fact that we don't know she when she was afflicted with it. And we also don't know whether it was correlated with any criminal activity. And while I understand maybe the court and the government believes I'm splitting hairs here, I do think,
You don't have to attribute any intent to me.
yeah, I'm not.
I'm not trying to trick you. I'm just asking a question. That's all.
That's our position, yes. I mean, I think it is technical, and I think that this is not just, the spirit of, whether she is entitled to restitution. I mean, people sue for emotional damages, and there's other remedies. This is a very specific type of remedial purpose, and yes, our position is that it has to be correlated to a specific activity that was charged in the Mann Act. Violations which put particular dates on these things. Yes.
Okay. Can I hear your response to that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Keep going.
Miss Albert.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Your Honor. Obviously, the defendant exposes victim to herpes multiple times, including on the date specifically alleged, as well as other dates. The causal link has to be established by two
Preponderant.
respondents of the evidence. It's been proven that the defendant exposes victim to herpes. She now has herpes and has to incur costs in order to treat that herpes. We submit that the evidence that was presented at the trial was sufficient to establish the causal link between the charged conduct and her costs, such that restitution is appropriate.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about that?
On the specific casual link issue, no. I think the briefing is sufficient. I do think it's an interesting question, and I don't know that it is as well resolved as I would like it to be. But I think our paper set forth our position on it.
I think so. I think so too. So I think this particular question can be analyzed under both restitution statutes. It has to be under 2429. And in connection with making this determination, I obviously presided over the trial and referred back to some of the testimony to refresh my recollection about what happened. As I said, the racketeering acts and the Mann Act defense charged the defendant with engaging in scheduled activity that exposed the person to genital herpes in violation of public health statutes. But the evidence at the trial established, as I recall it, and as I reviewed in the transcript, that Jane testified that she contracted genital herpes in the summer of 2015 and that she saw a doctor in 2015 and the doctor diagnosed her with herpes and prescribed medication. She told the defendant about this and he told her she could have gotten it from anyone. And she responded that she had only been intimate with him. Mm.
That's a
Medical
lie.
records.
I was typing it in the chat.
That's a lie because remember Bobby's son? I mean,
Hmm.
said that
Yes.
she was having sex with someone. So that's a lie. That's a lie. She was not a
Hmm.
virgin.
Yep. So medical records that were introduced at the trial also reflect that at that point the defendant was her only sexual partner. Given their testimony and given the actual charges, the government has satisfied its burden of showing that Jane contracted herpes from the defendant during the encounters that were identified in the indictment, even though he exposed her to it. But she would also be entitled to restitution under 18 USC section 3663. As I said before, a victim includes someone who has been harmed as a result of the commission of an offense. In the case of an offense that involved as an element of a scheme, conspiracy, or pattern of criminal activity, and someone who's a participant in that kind of conspiracy or criminal activity can be ordered to pay restitution. And my recollection is that the racketeering, one of the means and methods was exposing sexual partners without informing them that he had a sexually transmittable disease. Now, there's also a question about the calculations in terms of Valtrex instead of the generic version. I am not aware of any authority, but I will certainly hear from you, Ms. Bongine. If there is authority that requires a victim that is looking at different courses of treatment to pursue the less expensive option. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I don't. I think that kind of mischaracterizes the issue. I don't think it's a matter of pursuing a less expensive treatment. It's the same drug. One is just generic brand, which is what insurance would pay for, and one is an inflated brand version for which the government has filed to demonstrate any need or any expectation that she would opt for Valtrex rather than just pocket the $250,000, which is what would happen. I mean, she could go pay $15 a month for a generic brand, and then she would be left with over $200,000 for, I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So that's the concern.
What's your basis for saying it's $15? I looked at the website, or my law clerk more accurately looked at the website, and it says that a 30-day supply of a generic version without insurance costs $15.31
Correct.
to
Uh, what?
$60, depending on which pharmacy you visit. Is that wrong?
No. Well, the the same website that the government used demonstrates that the I mean, again, obviously these are I think these websites kind of give you an estimate of some type, but I didn't pull the 1531 from thin air. That
Okay.
was what they indicated was for uninsured people, 1531 for a 30-day supply of bicyclovir, which is again just the generic version. I don't know. I put the site there. I don't know if it didn't come up, but I could certainly Google it right now.
Well, I don't think it's necessary. I just wanted to make sure I understood what the source of the
Uh,
18.
the same source as the government's, $421.29.
Okay. Do you have any response you want to make to that in terms of using a generic version versus non-generic drug?
I would just observe that the requirement is that the amount be reasonable estimate and that the requirement is that the restitution reimburse victim for the full amount of their losses. And we submit that the data relating to out-of-pocket cost for Valtrex is reasonable estimate. As your colleague with defense counsel just pointed out, these prices can vary depending on geographic location and over time. We submitted a receipt from the victim known as Stephanie, who has insurance. Her copay was more than $15. There is no variation in how much it is truly going to cost. And given that the requirement is for restitution to cover the full amount of the victim's losses, we think using a conservative estimate of the brand name drug would be reasonable under the circumstances.
And your range, I think, was $35,
That's
35.74.
I think that's the copay that Stephanie had to pay. That's right.
All right. The other question was this issue of reimbursement for annual gyno exams. Is there anything more you want to say about that?
But can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to cut. Aren't you supposed to go do gynecologist exam anyway? It ain't got nothing to do with what's going
Exactly.
on.
Yes,
Exactly what I was typing.
correct. Yes.
What
Right.
the heck?
They trying to get every penny they can out of Mr.
But I'm
Kelly.
saying, why does he have to be responsible for paying her gynecological
Uh,
exam when she has to do one every year anyway?
yes,
That's her
your
dang
insurance is supposed to pay for that, ma'am.
right.
The-
The heck?
I said the
I'm
hell,
sorry, I'm
Sylvia.
just getting upset over this nonsense. I'm just getting upset. I'm fed up with this nonsense here.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's just outrageous.
Jennifer
It's
didn't
okay.
fight it. It doesn't look like Jennifer is even going to fight it,
Yeah,
but it's like, how silly.
she did, because remember the total amount was $357,000. They got it down to $309,000. So they did fight it. Something they wanted in there somewhere. You gotta wait
And
till you
that's
listen to it.
something she shouldn't have to do.
You're gonna
Like,
hear it.
you're going to have to take care of yourself as an adult, regardless of whether you're with this man. This is so stupid.
Exactly.
But you're gonna hear it. There's more. Sorry, because they started out with 357,000.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Again, keeping in mind that the defendant is required to compensate the victim for the full amount of her losses, and given the variation in what these drugs can cost, I think the government's estimate is reasonable and supported, and they have met their burden. That also goes for the annual gyno visits. That is a cost that is reasonably projected into the future, and it is a reasonable foreseeable offense of being infected with the disease. Now, the next question is therapy, and the government calculates that amount by assuming that Jane is going to require therapy, excuse me, for 3 and 3/4 years at a cost of $100 per session. And as I understand it, the 3 and 3/4 years number represents the period of victimization. Is that correct?
That's right, Your Honor.
All right. Is there anything that anybody wants to say in addition to what you've already said in your papers?
no, but as to Jane, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So, despite the fact that valciclovir, at least according to drugs.com, has an estimated 30-day supply cost of $15.31, and according to the government's reliance on the same website, that Valtrex has a monthly cost of $421.29. The 421 is, are we going to assume that that's the reasonable estimate?
Uh-oh. First of all, I think you might be misstating what your website said. I think it said $15 to $60, at least when I looked at it.
Okay.
But I think the request that the government has made is a reasonable request. And I understand you have an exception to it.
I'm not. I'm not. I do have an exception to it, but I'm just trying to get clarity that, let's just say that the website says 15 to 60 for valciclovir, and the court is determining that the 421 for Valtrex is the reasonable estimate.
I am determining that the government's estimate, which was a $35.74 figure, do I have that right?
No, Judge, you do not.
I wasn't asking you, I was asking the government.
That is the amount that Stephanie had to pay for the copay with insurance.
Oh, I see.
We're seeking restitution in the amount for the out-of-pocket expense as to Jane because she is uninsured.
Get Medi-Cal.
How
Okay,
the heck she's
so
uninsured? Everybody's getting insurance.
She could get what is it called? I don't think we have
Obamacare?
Obamacare, but okay, well that's what I'm thinking.
Marketplace. Go call Marketplace and find out how much insurance.
Medi-Cal, anything, little heifer.
Get some state
Sorry.
insurance.
And the government is handing out Section 8. I'm sure they gave her Medi-Cal.
Right.
Hello.
Okay, so I think it's reasonable, as the government points out, given the fluctuations in cost, to allow her restitution for the non-generic version of the drug. Nobody has cited anything to say that the defendant can dictate the kind of medicine that the victim takes. And so I understand you disagree with me and you can appeal.
She's going to appeal. Trust me.
Yes, she will. Yep.
Trust me. If Judge Donnelly was smart, she would go down lower in the price because she's going to get it overturned. Because that's one thing that Judge
Well, look
Gray
at the
taught me.
next sentence.
They're doing this on purpose
Look
to
at
keep
the
them
next
broke.
sentence.
Okay, where are we
Read
at?
the next
Sorry.
line. That's your answer.
Go ahead, Jen.
Sorry.
Number 6. Yeah, I intend
Yeah,
to.
I intend to. But my question is, I'm not trying to get clarity because you said both the 35 and.
Well, I was mistaken.
Duh.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to get clarity. Whenever the court's ready, I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, just take it easy on the court reporter if you could.
My apologies.
I think I made myself clear in terms of what the total amount was. And so that the herpes treatment expenses, the total amount is $357,218.18. And that total amount includes herpes, the projected therapy expenses for 3 3/4 years, and I haven't gotten to the question of lost income yet.
May I just, Your Honor? So I'm just going back to, and that was the premise on the 421 that the government estimated. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Now, with respect to, I also find that she is entitled to therapy given the testimony at trial. And I know you disagree with the evidence at the trial, Ms. Bonjean, but accepting the jury's verdict, there's more than enough evidence that could cause lifelong trauma. And the government's only asking for 3 3/4 years. The $100 per therapy session is reasonable. I know that you took issue with that number because somebody else paid $75,000. I think this is a reasonable amount, and so your objection to that is overruled. The question of lost income. The court may require restitution for lost income if an offense resulted in bodily injury to a victim, but that cannot be based on speculation. I think the government's theory is that the forced labor conduct, which is the subject of Racketeering Act 11, caused bodily injury. But I don't think the government has met its burden in showing that the defendant caused her to be unemployed by 3 3/4 years. So I think that's too speculative. I am not going to include that in the restitution award. Is there anything anybody else want to say about that?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Moving on to Stephanie. The government seeks two categories of restitution for her: past and future expenses for herpes treatment totaling $70,000, $70,581.72, and past therapy totaling $8,400. This falls under 18 USC section 3663 since Stephanie is not a Mann Act victim. I think some of the arguments are similar with respect to the propriety of ordering restitution for Stephanie for both of these. Let me just make sure I'm right. Well, with respect to the herpes, certainly. Is there anything additional that you want to say about that, Ms. Bonjean? Just with respect to that one item?
Yes, just briefly. I think the arguments are similar, but particularly as to Stephanie, I think that there is, and I think the record is devoid, frankly, of any evidence that there is a causal link between the charged offenses of any criminal activity that was allegedly part of the RICO enterprise that can be linked to her. Her herpes diagnosis, and that is also bolstered by the fact that the defendant himself wasn't diagnosed with herpes until spring of 2000.
Was he diagnosed then or just treated then?
No, he was diagnosed. But even according to the medical records, he started presenting in 2000 with certain types of symptoms that was then being treated and then formally diagnosed, I think in April of 2000. There's just nothing in the medical records that suggests he was suffering from herpes prior to 2000. I think there were some other medical entries that suggest he was diagnosed, I think, with a different STI at some point, but that's my recollection of the record. And also have and we also have no testimony from Stephanie herself. The government wasn't shy about eliciting testimony from witnesses who had alleged that they had been afflicted with herpes during the course of the relationship with Mr. Kelly. So the absence of that in her testimony, I think, is again collaborative of and would suggest that there is just insufficient evidence to make a correlation that he was responsible for that. And we're not talking about a disease that is very rare. I've cited it over and over, and I think we're doing a lot of stigmatization of herpes. People who have herpes, but 1 in 6 people people who have herpes. We're doing a stigmatization of herpes, or people who have herpes, but 1 in 6 people have herpes. So it is not outside the realm of possibility that this woman did not get herpes from Mr. Kelly. And the evidence just isn't there to support it. So, and it certainly can't be correlated to Racketeering Act 2. And there's just a dearth of evidence to make the necessary causal link from our standpoint. I know I just want for the record to be clear. I was a little confused by the government's letter on September 27th. The footnote, which said 2009, I kind of assumed it meant 2000 because the 9 and the 0 are next to each other, but it sounds like what they meant to say was 1999. Again, I was hypothesizing at that point because I didn't have clarity on what they really meant by that. But in any event, the analysis is the same from my perspective. There isn't the sufficient correlation to the charge offense of any criminal activity charged in the racketeering enterprise. And then we also have, unlike in Jane's situation, a fair amount of evidence that was received that would contradict any claim that she actually did contract herpes from Mr. Kelly. So that's what I would add to the argument, Your Honor.
Government want to be heard?
Pretty brown eyes.
Miss Albert, can we pay attention to the court's proceeding?
I'm sorry, I got lost.
25, 25, line 3.
Okay. Go ahead and read it until I find it. Sorry.
Your Honor, Stephanie had informed the government that this is in the 3500 item that we cited in our letter. You see that?
Mm.
And that she had this sexual relationship with Mr. Kelly, and after a couple of months of she began to have symptoms, was diagnosed. And she specifically stated that she was 17 year old at the time of her diagnosis, which could put it in 1999.
I got it. Given
Okay.
the correlation in time and the nature of her relationship with Mr. R. Kelly, and it falling within the scope of the charged criminal conduct, the government would then submit that by a pre-respondence of the evidence, the cost of Stephanie's herpes treatment is fairly attributable to the defendant's criminal conduct and should fall within the scope of restitution order.
Okay, what is your position as to Miss Bonjean's point that he wasn't? I don't know when he was diagnosed versus when he was treated.
Yes, Your Honor. As we point out in the papers, herpes infections are often asymptomatic, so it's necessarily treated for herpes. Post dated
It's
his
not necessary.
relationship.
Not
Oops, sorry. So
not
it's not necessarily conclusive that the fact that the defendant began to be treated for herpes post dated his relationships with Stephanie doesn't conclusively establish that he did not affect her with herpes. And so, given again the correlation in time, the fact that per the victim, Mr. Kelly was only partner during the period in her life, and the standard of pre per, per we think it is the evidence make it reasonable to conclude that the costs were the result of Mr. Kelly's conduct.
hold on a second. I just want to make a comment here, y'all. Here's my
Everybody with a
comment.
verdict.
You know what the comment I'm about to say. Okay. You're trying to say that you hadn't had no sex, but you're going to meet this man the same day and you're going to go and hop on his ding ding? Come on now.
Exactly.
Stop it.
What a coincidence.
Stop it. Y'all
Full
need to
of it.
stop that
Full of
nonsense.
it. That's just like, come on. And
Just stop it.
these
Stop it.
believers of this bull, they are in some kind of cuckoo world. They think it's
Everybody's
hard.
a virgin, y'all. Everybody's a virgin before they met Mr. Kelly. Everybody's a virgin. Okay. All right. But then you're going to have sex with him the same night you meet him? Come on now. Stop. Let me mute myself. Sorry.
Some loose virgins.
Okay, counsel also points out that she didn't testify about it at trial. I bet she didn't. Do you have a response to that?
I don't believe she was asked about it, so it's not as though she testified to the contrary. And she did prior to trial during an interview in 2019 state that she believed she had contracted herpes from Mr. Kelly.
Believing and know for a fact is two different things.
Exactly. So if you were truly a
And you
virgin,
didn't go
then you
get
would know.
tested.
If you knew for a fact that you was a virgin when you slept with him, you wouldn't have to think about that.
Man, they lie so much.
All right. Anything else you want to say about that, Ms. Bonjean?
Only to highlight, Your Honor, I think the government is now saying, well, he could have been asymptomatic. I mean, it is such conjuncture. And we are looking back at an event from 20 years ago. So, and I think it should require more than what the government has established to make a causal link. They're not only not making a causal link to the specific offense conduct, which they can't do, but they are not even making a link to, that it happened and that Mr. Kelly was responsible for that. I mean, again, I think the record speaks for itself on that. I don't think we can just assume he was asymptomatic, which, by the way, I think their own expert indicated that in initial outbreak, you're not asymptomatic. When you first get it, that's why you go to the doctors and that's how you get diagnosed. It isn't like,
Boom.
you know, a nagging thing that you don't, you know,
Boom.
or notice. I think that's contrary to what their own expert testified to.
Thank you. Exactly what we're saying. And let me tell y'all something else too. Okay, you have the man at the top of his peak of his career, and none of y'all say not a damn thing about you having herpes at that time. Come on, stop. That's a check right there. So shut up.
Okay. Well, the expert's testimony was pretty broad on the ways in which herpes can be treated, including when people are not symptomatic. So I don't think that the expert's testimony supports the position that he did not transmit it. And my recollection is also that he was treated for it sometime after the relationship with Stephanie, but being treated for it doesn't mean that he didn't have it before. I find that the government has shown by a preponderance of the evidence that Stephanie's entitled to restitution for treatment for herpes. The circumstantial evidence, which was she first had sex with the defendant when she was 17 years old in 1999 and had a relationship that lasted for 6 months. There's support for that in the 3500 material that he was her only partner and that she was diagnosed with herpes a few months after she got symptoms. And so I find that this satisfies the government's burden that she contracted it during the conduct that formed the basis for Racketeering Act 2, but the overall purposes of the racketeering enterprise, including the means and methods, including precisely this kind of conduct. There's a question that I have for the government. That exhibit that you submitted suggests that Stephanie is taking a generic version. I don't know what your evidence is what she took from 1999 to 2015. But if she's taking a generic version, I don't think your calculations should be adjusted.
Certainly, Your Honor.
Keep going.
Certainly, Your Honor.
This damn judge is so biased. I'm sorry. I'm gonna shut up.
He is.
I see it.
But keep reading. You. Pretty
Miss
brown eye.
Albert. Miss Albert is still you.
I did. I said certainly, Your Honor.
Keep on going.
Keep going.
Oh, for the period during which she's had insurance, I believe the calculation reflects the actual cost submitted in the exhibit. I don't know what we have information historically as to what version of the drug she was taking in the years prior to her obtaining insurance. But if the court, I also don't know at what point the generic version of Valtrex became available to on the market, since we're going back quite a long time. So I may want to look into that, but
I think you're going to have to revisit your calculations on that.
understood.
Then there's a question of therapy. The request is for $8,200 to cover past therapy costs. And I think I understand the parties' relevant positions. Is there something that you want to add to that, Ms. Bonjay?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else that the government wants to say?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I find those costs, 8,200, are reasonable and supported by the evidence. It is true that this relationship was, I guess, relatively short, but the trial evidence was that Stephanie was 17 at the time and that she testified that she suffered and continues to suffer as a result of the nature of their relationship, which included demeaning and degrading conduct. So I find that she is entitled to the compensation for therapy that she went through to deal with the trauma. And so that's a reasonable amount. Now, the question is Sonia. The government is seeking 5,200 in future expenses. Of course, the difference here is that the jury found racketeering acts involving Sonia were not proven. Those are racketeering acts 3 and 4. I mean, the rule is that restitution can be given even if there is an uncharged or acquitted count. But does anyone have anything else they want to say on this subject?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, our position is, of course, that even apart from the fact that he was acquitted of the conduct, there is insufficient evidence to support what exactly Sonia is seeking restitution for, and in connection to what offense, again, for which Mr. Kelly has not been convicted. And of course, our position is the government's, assertion that they still proved it by a preponderance of evidence is just that. We don't have any type of indication from the jury that it was proved by a preponderance of evidence, even that low standard. So I have nothing more to add.
I agree with the defense on this one. There's no way to determine, although I'm not sure it's required, why the jury found that these facts were not proved, but they did. And I find that under these circumstances, the government has not met its burden in establishing that these acts are covered by the statute. And so I'm denying restitution to Sonia. The next question, and I think I'm going to need further submissions on this, at least unless the government or defense has something else to say about it. Because in determining a schedule of payment, one thing I have to consider is Mr. Kelly's resources, which continues in my mind to be a sort of murky area. I know when we discussed this in sentencing, it was the defense position that he was indigent, or nearly indigent, at least with respect to the information that you had at the time. And since then, it emerged that he had this approximately $2,800 in his commissary account. The government also represented at sentence that there's a separate, I forgot what it's called, but a separate copyright that gives him access to additional money. But nobody has really given me any clarity on this. And so on the question of scheduling, it's difficult for me to determine how to set up that schedule. Because, for example, I don't know if you know, I don't know what the source of the 2,800 was.
Go on, Jennifer. Tell them.
I do know.
Okay.
Fans
Okay.
that were making deposits into his commissary account. So, which they will not do anymore, of course. So that's where that money was coming from. They were people making, $100 here, $100 there. I don't really know. I don't have the specific data of that, but that was not from any source of income to the best of my knowledge, or any related to Mr. Kelly's royalties, or any related to that. Our position remains the same, or at least my understanding is to the royalties. As I said at sentencing, it is not that he does not have money generated as a result of his body of work. He just has no access to it because there are judgments against it.
My recollection, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just want to make sure that I don't forget. I thought the way I understood it, and I'm sure you all know far more about this than I do, but that the royalties with Sony were subject to some civil judgments.
2, correct.
And then do you have any more insight into the separate, I think it was 5 million that he might have access to?
I mean, the government has made that claim. I have not been able to verify that. I would be happy to look at any documents that the government wants to provide me. Mr. Kelly has never in his history of his career been, I would say, apprised really, or even knowledgeable about how his business deals work. There's again, and that evidence was presented in great detail in Chicago case, but I will represent that in the court here. He is functionally illiterate. That was always deferred to managers. So he is not the best source of information. If the government was, with its subpoena power, which I think it has exercised in a number of ways, has the ability to clarify this for me, I will be happy to do my best to inquire further to the extent I can. But I think they're actually in a better position than me. But I am I am aware of this other pot of money that the government has referenced.
What would you like to say about this?
I'll need to look into it further, Your Honor, and would be happy to submit an additional letter on the subject of schedule for payment.
Wow. You submit that
They
crap and you don't know where it's at?
That's
Come on.
crazy,
I
right?
mean, the fact that they said they were going to do this for this date and then they have nothing, it should be dismissed.
Oh,
It should be dismissed. It's not fair that if she keeps giving them
right.
time.
More
Right,
time.
No more time. You either have it
right,
or you don't.
right.
And you're also going to have to submit an order, a restitution order
Correct, Your Honor.
for me. And keep in mind that I know some of it is probably going to be, I don't know how you want to handle this sealed, not sealed portion, but I think there's a method for doing that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Hold on for a minute. Let me just make sure I haven't missed anything.
If there's a way for the restitution order to trump the default judgments, I'd be happy to sign on to that so that that money can go towards restitution payments.
Well, my understanding, and you will correct me if I'm wrong, I think under the statute, well, I think doesn't the defense have the responsibility of showing what the defendant's financial condition is? I'm not saying if you can't do it, you can't do it.
I mean, we did do an affidavit of his financial status as part of which probation.
Right.
Again, I don't think I can really reiterate as best. I mean, I can continue to reiterate it. It's just a little more challenging than it seems like it should be. But
I think I understand your position. It's just a slightly unusual situation. So,
yes, and part of this is because Sony doesn't cooperate with me. They cooperate with the government. I can't call Sony up and get that information. They'll give it to the government, but they won't give it to me. Now, maybe that's not how it should be. I think it's probably not, but that is just how it is. Uh-huh, Sony.
do
Put it
you
out
have
there.
do you have anything else you want to say about that?
Sorry.
Miss Albert, wake up.
No, Your Honor.
All right, hold on. I just want to double check here. Uh, I, I also want I will also confess that math is not my strong suit, but ordinarily I will give you the breakdown. But I think you've got some recalculations to do, and I haven't determined the schedule just because the government is asking for some additional time for that.
Okay.
So I can tell you the amounts with respect to Jane that the total amount is, and I believe this is right, $300,668.18. But you are going to recalculate the medication cost for Stephanie, and there is 8,400 in therapy. The other thing to keep in mind, just in terms of schedule of payments, I set a schedule based on the fines, which is typical. I think it's $25 a quarter and then 10% upon release of gross monthly income. I think that's right. That was set in part because we hadn't decided the restitution.
Y'all hear that? $25
Yeah.
per quarter. That's how much it's supposed to be. But nah, they doing all this extra stuff.
Oh
Mm,
my goodness.
that's only $100 a year
I'm supposed to say they're trying to bleed this man
plus
dry.
10%.
Yeah, the 10% is gonna do it.
Crazy.
The other issue is that the 900 mandatory assessment has to be paid first, I think. Then the restitution and then the fines. And there's also the $40,000 amount. And I don't remember what order that comes in. And just so I think I'm right. No payments have been made at all yet. Is that right?
I don't believe so, Judge. I just want, no, the answer to your question is
I know you've had a few other things going on.
just a few. I don't believe there has been. Mr. Kelly has been pretty occupied too for the last 5 weeks, but I just, the court mentioned something, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something in your prior order about the schedule of payments. I did see the order saying that a lump sum of 900 was due immediately.
Right.
I didn't see the reference to the schedule of payments in the order.
It's not in the order. It's at the end of sentencing. Did I not put it in the order? I'm pretty sure we did. Did we not put the schedule in? I'm not sure that it has to be in the order actually, but
I'm not
I'm not
sure either,
sure
Judge.
either, Judge. Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm not sure either, Judge.
It
Nobody
may
knows
not
a
be.
damn thing.
It may not be. I just would like to know what the court said so I can write it down.
it's also in the minutes of the sentencing at the end. I just have the rough copy.
Was it?
Then the other little wrinkle which occurs to me is the question of the money from Mr. Kelly's commissary account, which I think you've appealed that. Is that an appealable order?
I believe so. The Second Circuit, I think, joined it with the appeal from the substantive case.
Right. I think you're right. So the only thing I was saying was that the reason that the seized was to cover what his obligations are. So that's going to be a source of at least some of the restitution. And I don't know which. The other thing you're going to have to let me know is I think because it's mandatory that the restitution for Jane will come first.
That's my understanding of the law.
So, all right. What's the timeline here for your submissions?
Could I have a week, Your Honor?
Sure. Do you have any additional submissions you want to make, or do you want to see what they say first?
I don't want to promise I won't have any additional submissions.
I'm sure you will. It's perfectly fine. I mean, if you want to have another week after that,
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, just so I can take a look.
okay.
And I'll try to do some more due diligence looking into the questions the court raised about his income.
Okay, thanks so much. Anything else anybody wants to put on the record?
Not for the government, Your Honor.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Kelly, you heard all of that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much. Matter adjourned.
Oh,
Even
All
if
right,
he
y'all.
that's
Thank
good.
you. Woo!
isn't she supposed to ask if he understood, even if he heard it?
She's supposed to ask that, but I don't understand what's going on. Where everybody jumped off? What happened? She kicked herself off. She kicked herself off, y'all. They kicked themselves off by mistake. Here they come. They're coming back. Here they come. What are y'all doing?
I pulled my
That's a
screen
West
down.
Coast thing.
You know when you pull your screen down on the phone and it refreshes the screen.
Right. I'm on the phone, so when I seen it, I was like, oh my God, it went away. You know I'm still trying to wake up.
Girl, it's been like an hour. Who wakes up after that long?
I do.
Oh, you're welcome, Misguided. Oh, yes, they did put things in, and it was sealed, Tamiria, to answer your question. They did put it like about a week after, and it's sealed. Remember, I tried to go in and look at it? I couldn't look at it.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the same thing. Like, okay, so what did they put in? Because their week is up.
No, it's sealed. It's sealed. They will not let me see what it is. You know, I would have been in it.
Wow.
You know what I've been. So, guys, I got it exclusively in the infamous Sylvia channel, the transcript reading.
So, so did
I'm so
Jennifer
quick as
reply,
always.
Sylvia?
Yeah, it is reply.
Did, so Jennifer replied also, and it was
Oh,
sealed?
yeah, it's everything sealed. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It was sealed. I'll tell you the date they did it. Hold on a second. Let me go back into my stuff.
Let's just talk about how biased this judge is.
Oh my God, y'all. But let me tell you something. Oh, they're not gonna get a dime. All that money gonna have to be given back because once they do that, what's the name? I'll pay her $1 a minute. $1 a day. No, $1 a month. Yeah, it was sealed. They submitted it on the 13th. It's sealed.
Mm.
We can't see it. Speaking of seal. Yep. Jennifer submitted hers on 12 10 12. The government hasn't submitted anything, yo. The government didn't submit anything.
So should they time be done? I'm tired of them.
That time's up.
They didn't submit.
tired of
Only
them.
Jennifer submitted something. They didn't submit anything. How come they get to do that kind of crap? Why
Because
they get
because
leniency?
Ann Donnelly is a biased judge who is for the government and totally against anything R. Kelly.
Yeah, she definitely is biased.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's anything R. Kelly that she's against as opposed to anything sexually related because that was her area and that was her where she initially was fighting.
But
So
my
I
thing is, they should have had her removed from the case because she was not going to be a fair judge because she was already biased.
because she was a sexual defense attorney, which we could essentially have said about.
You just muted yourself. You just like stopped. You were talking and just stopped. What happened?
Am I back?
Yeah, you back now. Say what you're gonna say again.
I forgot. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she's a part of board of different organization that has to do with women movement stuff. See, you know, this stuff got to stop. Gucci says Ann is part of for the Me Too movement.
And that is another reason she should have been what is it called? Is it called recalled, withdrawn?
Recused.
Exactly. Like she has too many things to show that she is a judge who cannot be unbiased in this type of case.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but as always, thank you guys for your time. I have to go make some money because I gotta pay bills. Okay.
Bye.
It's just so great that we have the opportunity to so R. Kelly is still Sony's payroll. I don't know. I don't.
We need to boycott Sony. Sonny. What artists do they have right now? I'll look them up.
All right, guys, I gotta go. Y'all want to sit here and play games while I don't make money? I gotta go. Cause ain't none of y'all giving me no money. I gotta go. Bye.
Bye.